Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ventures Podcast. This episode with Will Rush is incredible. We talk about a lot of things related to helping those under the age of 18 learn about the world of investing, specifically Web3 investing, specifically with crypto. So in this episode, we actually dive into how he's having a 5-point approach from long-term holdings all the way to different education, different engagement mechanisms, different ways of thinking about diversification that is extremely insightful, hopefully fun for those under the age of 18 and the parents that are engaging with them to learn not just about crypto, although I think that's super important. If you've listened to anything on this show, you know that I'm pretty into it. But just basic financial literacy for teenagers is so incredibly important. And so I admire Will and the Stack team for what they are doing. So if you are listening to this episode, you can also watch by visiting wclittle.com. There I'll have more extensive show notes, the different things that we talk about today, because we do get into actually some pretty very deep in the rabbit hole topics, which I think hopefully for those that are a little more into crypto will appreciate. Hopefully we don't lose everybody else. And if you're watching, you can also listen by visiting or you can listen by anywhere that you get your podcasts. You can just search for Ventures and it should show up. So with that, please enjoy this conversation with Will Rush. All right, Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So I am so excited about this episode. My 16-year-old son is currently diving in to what you are building. And I'd love to just start, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been in securities and banking for my whole career. So I started by working with more traditional firms like Charles Schwab, E-Trade, and Scottrade, and some of those more, stock trading firms. And then more recently, I worked with a local Seattle startup called Copper. And they were teaching teenagers how to graduate high school with a credit score, how to save, how to do a lot of really cool fundamental stuff. And that was, I guess, some of the foray into this teenage, fintech world. I think it's so important to be getting young people involved, whether that be their own finances from a bank account standpoint, their own finances from an investing standpoint, understanding how lending works. All of those things. And so what we're doing with Stack, obviously is born out of all of that time. The biggest question I think that was always kind of like in the back of my head for the last 12 years was, there is always going to be a group of people that never click a Robinhood ad. And if they never click a Robinhood ad, how do you get them to realize that compound interest and compound investing makes the biggest difference in keeping up with inflation, in keeping up with just the wealth gap between the richest and the, not as rich people in the world? And so just by being involved, even if at a low level, is the biggest goal. And so what we realized was, when you create financial habits before 18 years old, those financial habits stick around. And even if they're with $10, it doesn't matter. It matters more that they're building familiarity, that they understand that a lot of this financial world is kind of cloaked in false complexity, and it's really not that complicated to be dangerous in. Yeah. And so we're just doing that with digital assets. Obviously there's a huge zeitgeist behind crypto and Web3 and the metaverse right now. And so we're leaning into that as hard as we can, but staying in that fundamental world of just financial literacy for teenagers.
Amazing. So tell us about the origin story for Stack. Like, where did it start? How did you start coming up with the different ideas to approach it?
Yeah. So maybe silly enough, the real origin is I started from an A/B test on social media. I actually, we were taking the same picture, same words. We would change one word, stock and crypto. and we would put it out to the teenage world, and
Mm,
we would get 5 times the engagement on crypto that we
mm,
would on stock. And that was at the same time when I think this new stat had just come out that 18 to 25-year-olds own 1.2 times more crypto than they do stock. And just
mm,
the fact that there's more crypto in their portfolio than stock, I think, is a huge light bulb.
mm.
Whereas maybe some of the older generation sees it as like the risky part of their portfolio. I mean, the youngest group is going all in on this, and so
Right.
I think there's a huge moment to say, hey, a lot of people are curious about this. How do we teach them the good, the bad, and everything in between? And use it as a catalyst to get everybody involved in their own finances at an early age so that they can make mistakes, so that they can do it with $10, and then when they have an income and they have $1,000 in an account, they're dangerous, and they can make their own financial decisions.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. This I couldn't be more aligned with the vision here. So tell us about the product. Like what is Stack?
Yeah, so it'll be a mobile app. um, and really, like, there's probably three important features of the app. One is very simply, you can just go buy, sell crypto, withdraw, deposit to fiat banking systems into crypto, just like any other crypto exchange. So the Coinbases, Geminis, Krakens, whatever of the world, very, very similar that way. But you can do it at any dollar level. And we are subscription based. And we made that very conscious decision when everybody in crypto is still commission fees based,
Mm,
so that we can really walk the walk of our business model. And that is actually to decrease things like day trading and
mm,
more emphasize long term holding and things like that. And we think that if our business model, our revenue model was built on top of how much and how often you trade, that we wouldn't be able to really walk that walk in the same way. And so
mm.
we're subscription fee based. Whether you trade 10 times or one time, you pay the subscription fee. And that subscription fee also gets you access to other parts of the platform. One is the learning content. And it's very similar to like a Coinbase Earn, if you've heard of or if you've used Coinbase Earn before, where you can take quizzes and you get free crypto. And those quizzes unlock every day. They're 2 minutes long. They're super digestible content, really geared towards teenagers. And they come with a video for each question too.
Mm.
And so they can watch a 30-second video, which is almost like the cheat code to the question. Um, and then they get rewarded with free crypto just for doing that. And if they did it all 30 days of the month, they would basically have the platform for free. So that's the second feature. And then the last feature is this award system. And the award system is based on our 5 pillars. One is long term holding, one is periodic savings, one is diversification, one is just engagement, and then the last is learning. And so every time you hit on any 5 of those things, you get awards.
Wow, that's awesome. Which chains are you supporting?
So we're going to start off with somewhat of a limited offering, and that's just like technology wise. We're just slowly kind of building out the functionality of the platform.
Sure.
But also, I think you have this question in your mind, which I'm almost curious to hear your stance as a parent. It's does a kid want access to 100 different coins? Do they need access to 100 different coins? Should they only have Bitcoin and Ethereum? Should they? And so I think there's a weird gray line there. We will have 11 coins to the platform on day one, and those are some of the highest volume coins, mixed with a few that we think are like Decentraland, for instance, that we think are very natural to just our audience and how they might use those coins. Um, so we're kind of slowly going to see how that goes on the app and what the demand and appetite is, but TBD.
Is it all coins on the Ethereum mainnet or are you using other chains?
Yeah, no, Ethereum mainnet. So we actually connect through a third party provider, and they do all of the settlement and custody and all that kind of good stuff for Kraken and Binance, if you're familiar with those
Mhm,
exchanges.
mhm, mhm.
So we use the same kind of backend
Okay, so
as
you
they do.
KYC through, and now how do you KYC with miners? What is that like?
Yeah, so a parent has to be attached to an account, obviously,
Okay.
and the parent approves transactions. And so the teen has their own login, their own username, password. They can go on and have the full functionality of the app. And then the parent can basically decide at what level they want to approve orders, if they want to approve every single individual order. And the
Or
parent
approve
sits
an
on top of
amount or
everything.
something.
Exactly. So they could say, hey,
That's
I
cool.
want to auto approve, or I want to, like approve very individually. I'm going to get a notification every single time my team queues up a trade. And then they get pushed through from that parent account.
So, can you say the five again? What was it? Education? It was, what were the five? I love that.
Long term holding,
Uh huh.
diversification, long term periodic savings, engagement. And engagement means
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's like the lesson of when your portfolio goes red for the first time, you need to be able to go back into the app and realize that that's just part of learning about investing,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
need to engage. So we want people to be just engaging with their portfolio. And then the fifth is learning, and that's doing those quizzes to get free crypto.
Now, okay, let's take them actually in reverse order. The quizzes. Did you establish like relationships with the teams behind each of these coins to kind of help do it, or like what is the revenue model or the business model for Stack that encourages people to take these quizzes? Because I know different teams have approached this different ways, and I'm just curious what the angle is.
Yeah, I mean, so we have quizzes that are based around specific coins. Obviously, we don't have any outside involvement from this. I mean, I'll tell you, we digest a ton of content of others, as you can
Yeah,
imagine, just to sort of sample what's out there.
yeah.
Um, we've been very, very thoughtful about testing this with teenagers and what kind of content they want, and also how they learn about it. The biggest thing is actually sort of decoding what teens think they know, and approaching that in a way that you sort of guide them along the path rather than telling
Interesting.
them.
Okay, so you have a straight subscription revenue model, and then you just do these quizzes. Because I know you may want to think about it, because I know some of these foundations from all these networks and such actually have money to partner with companies like
Yep.
Stack. That's I'd imagine that might be on your roadmap a little bit there.
It definitely could be. I am familiar with, like, I think one's called like Rabbit Hole. That is a prequel version of this.
Yep.
So I do know of those businesses. For right now, we're trying to keep it somewhat basic, and also it's just like foundations of finance too. Like, what is the blockchain? I mean, there's going to be teams on this app that don't have a ton of sophistication with crypto yet, and so it's really just making it
Totally.
approachable.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, right? If I'm paying what is it per month?
It's 349 if you pay annually and 449 if you pay monthly.
If
So it's the price of a cup of coffee a month. Is how we refer to it.
you're talking not hundreds. You're talking like three
No,
dollars.
it's $3.49.
Because in my head, I'm like, okay, would I pay $300 a month for? I was like, wow, okay. I could see if there were like tutors and like one-on-one, like a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
like, but that would
No, it's
be
cheap
okay. So you're talking just the price of a cup of coffee a month. All right.
yes
So as a
to
parent,
teach your child about digital assets.
that
It should
is
be a
an
no-brainer.
absolute no-brainer, right? As a venture capitalist, I'm always telling our portfolio companies raise prices. Um,
Yes, I've gotten
I
that
you
feedback a lot.
you will probably be able to raise prices because especially if it's people like me that are your customers and our kids are using it. But it's impossible to say to armchair quarterback that, right? Like you know your numbers and your revenue and your metrics and all that stuff way better than anybody else. But regardless, for those listening in, for those watching, for the price for that price a month, this is like I'm happy to pump your project because we need more of this, right? We
We
need
do.
yeah.
And it has to be non-cost prohibitive, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. I've gotten this feedback from a lot of our investor group about this is a premium product and it could be premium, pricing. I wanted it to be very competitive with the lowest priced,
Mm.
products on the market, because you open it up to the masses by doing that. And the good that it can do, I care way more about scaling this
Yeah.
and having a ton of customers that really like what we're doing, and potentially adding more premium features like, you know, purchasing things with your, digital assets, and doing some other things that I think we're going to add down the road, that might add some cost to the platform. But for right now, in this basic form, I want it to be as approachable as possible to
Love
everyone.
it. Love it. Okay. So education. So you're pulling in content probably from not just those 11 projects, but probably beyond and Web3 in
Yes.
general. And is
Yep.
it specifically educating them about Web3, or is it educating them about financial literacy, or all of the above, or like what's the kind of the scope of the education for the teens?
Yeah, we do 20% about financial basics. And that's like, just like make sure that they have some competency of, what investing is in the first place. What is an investment? What makes something an investment? And then we do 80% on Web3. And that is, of course, a very broad term these days,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's mostly crypto. We do a
Okay.
little bit of like, blockchain tech education, a little bit of like metaverse tech
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
But mostly it's about crypto.
Got it. Got it. Cool. No, that's great. All right. So I'm just thinking about it as a parent here. So then let's go. We're in reverse order. So engagement,
Yeah.
right? When I think about engagement, I think I'm I'm in the annals of somebody's Discord. I'm following them on Twitter. I'm replying to their stuff on Twitter. Uh, I'm like actually trying to think about the content, the roadmap. I'm engaging from both uh, a community member that's sort of asking questions and learning things, and I'm potentially engaging as an owner of their token, which with a financial interest in the success of what they're doing. Um, what does engagement look like for the teens on the platform?
Yeah. Engagement, I think, centers around gamification. Gamification, I
Mm,
think, gets a little bit of a complicated reputation, right?
mm,
Because you can use gamification like some do, and maybe it's not for the best practices under the
mm,
hood.
mm,
And then you kind of teach people to do things that aren't always great. But if you use gamification and you gamify some of these foundations, that's where it becomes exciting. So giving awards, if someone holds an investment for a week, or a month, that brings them onto the platform to go see the awards that they got.
mm.
I think down the line, we definitely want to do some things with avatars, for instance, where you can, instead of taking crypto rewards, you can also get like digital avatar gear for an avatar that's connected with one of the two biggest avatar platforms in the video game world. And so you can basically have that integrated into the app right there. And so it's really like creating these other ways for you to go to your investment app, because in reality, there's no reason for you to go to Charles Schwab's app right now, right? You go there to check your portfolio, and that's pretty much it. And if you're long term holding investments, that probably means there's no reason to engage with it. And so by engaging with these quizzes, by engaging with these awards, potentially avatars and some social features down the line, it becomes this investing platform that has a lot of things built on top of it to make investing feel a lot more approachable.
I see. So they're path pipes 4 and 5 are kind of similar because they're taking quizzes and doing things from education, but then the engagement, it's almost like they're going on quests to go get gear, right? Is it in the form of,
Exactly.
are you getting NFTs? Are you literally giving NFTs as part of it?
NFTs are such a complicated one. And this is like some personal things about NFTs. I think the NFT technology is an amazing technology, and I totally believe in it. I think we're still in such early days of NFTs that it's not something that we prioritized from day one for right now. So we give awards that, like, in theory, they could be NFTs, right? We could attach them to non fungible token technology, and I think that they would be well received in that way. But we just haven't embedded that yet because we want to approach that really thoughtfully. And we know with parents and teens, if we're going to make this truly a universal platform and not just for the crypto crazies, right?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
need to bear the burden of doing things as thoughtfully as possible. And so NFTs aren't on it day one, but we'll be thinking about it for sure.
So then, if I'm going after a particular sword or a particular armor, or whatever reward, how am I receiving that? Am I receiving that in some external game that I play, or am I receiving that? Is that just a piece that's in Stacks database, or like what is it? What are the rewards in path 4 here?
Yeah, so we can, so we'll be able to down the line store those. Again, the avatar technology is also not on the platform on day one. It's something that we're also thinking about,
Hmm.
but you'll be able to store it in a digital wallet the same way that you could store it anywhere else. The integration of video games, we are at the very, very early stages of.
Sure, sure.
And to be honest, I can't even appreciate exactly what that's going to, I think a lot of people can yet, but it's obvious, right? It has to be on our radar. If I think about myself as a teenager, and maybe you too, like the two things I wanted to do was buy video games,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and like go play them. And so
Oh yeah.
we have to be able to integrate at some point with that.
Totally. I mean, Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just imagine like OG Final Fantasy. I could be playing that and learning. I mean, you kind of are by playing. To be honest, like by playing
Yeah,
these really rich video games, you actually are learning a lot of very
totally.
practical. A lot of parents don't realize that, and the kids are off gaming and whatever. There's a lot of really applicable skills that are being learned, um, especially if the game creators are clever in the way that they go about the journeying with the characters.
Yeah,
But
I'm
there's
with
a
you.
big blowback in the gaming community against NFTs. They're like, get your NFTs out of our game.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it'll be interesting how how you navigate that.
I agree. I think that there is a very complicated relationship with all of these ideas right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
NFTs, I think that people ask the wrong question about NFTs. They always talk about, oh, is there utility or is there not utility? Like, I think with a lot of NFTs out there, it's very clear right now, day one, there is not utility with a lot of NFTs. Um, it's really more that you're in the earliest stages of an industry with a really cool technology. And so if you believe in what's under the hood with the technology, just like the blockchain, then you think that that people are going to figure it out. That people are going to figure out how to give value and how to create something that's cool. And that's a very complicated equation, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
creating a beautiful picture of a like landscape or monkey or something else is very different than creating value for people through a technology. And so will they be commingled? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
be curious to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, a lot of the more forward thinking NFT groups are just their NFTs are like club membership club passes, and
Right.
for a lot of them, whether they say it out loud or not, it really is kind of like a share in the company, because as the
Yeah.
company
Oh,
grows,
totally.
the value of these things grow, and a lot of people are airdropping things to the addresses, and so there's fascinating dynamics about what could be done, and I'm curious how, as years go on, how you think about it with Stack. And yeah,
Yeah.
love to be a sounding board with you on that.
Oh my gosh, I was having this exact same thought literally this weekend, and I was thinking, like with this Yuga Labs stuff that's come
Right,
out recently, I was
right,
like, okay, so they have 10,000 NFTs. Like if you say they have 10,000 shares of their company,
right,
and the average price of their shares in quotations is pretty high.
right,
What does that put their market cap at before any of this Andreessen deal happened?
right,
And
exactly.
it's really interesting once you think about it. You kind of break it down to like what is the metaphor for this whole Web3 universe in the Web2 universe, if you will.
Mm,
I use that a lot. We use that in our education content all the time, and we break down crypto as if it's a stock or as if it's another financial product. Is it currency? Is it money? What's different about traditional currency and digital currency? And just some of that stuff. I think it makes it really easy to digest once you put it in that context.
yeah, yeah, cool. Okay, all right. So we're going in reverse order. Was number three long term holdings,
Long term savings. Yeah, yeah.
long term savings? All right. So let's talk about that. Why is that important to teach the teens?
Yeah, I mean, this goes to like every under 18 platform that's out there right now, I think does probably a pretty effective job of this.
Mm,
And it's just to say, even if you save $5 a month, if you repeat that habitually, there will be this part of your brain that just is engaged in saving. And you'll ask yourself what that percentage of your income is at some point, but creating that habit, and the earlier you can create that habit, the better, at agnostic to the dollar value is the important part. And so we do that same thing where you can basically turn on automated deposits to your account. You can do them weekly, you can do them monthly, you can even do them quarterly. Sometimes that's tied in with things like allowance, that kids get. Sometimes, and we're actually thinking about integrating this too. If a team goes and works as a waiter or a lifeguard or something else for the summer, we want them to be able to put part of their paycheck in a stack account. And so, I think being true to just like figuring out in your brain that you need to be saving some part of your money.
And are you teaching them to be in like liquidity pools and staking with long term? Like what are you teaching them?
Staking is it's probably the number one feature that will be added to our platform in the first update.
Oh, cool.
So we won't have staking on day one, but it is inevitable.
And is it going to be on Beacon Chain with the merge with Ethereum here? Because how are you going to do staking specifically?
That's sort of the sausage is being made right now.
Got it.
So
yeah, because I know there's these fractional. I think you have to have like 85 ETH or something to run a node, but there's going to be these fractional node as a service platforms. There's like 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And so yeah, it'd be interesting to navigate to basically teach the users of the app that you can stake on, let's say, the Ethereum chain and earn rewards very similar to being in a bank account and getting interest.
Totally. It's a fixed income product, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like staking is at all intents and purposes, it's a CD, right? It's a it's a treasury note, it's like
Right.
it's just that in the crypto world. And so we'll definitely have that. And how we do it is we're sort of under the hood on right now.
Right, because even teaching them about liquidity pools too, that these automated market makers that have to swap tokens, that rewards go to the people who provide liquidity in these pools. That could be a cool. It's basically like another way to long term invest by either staking or LPing, and to be able to just teach people about. I mean, how many people know what LPing and staking right now? It's actually probably a
Very
small number of people. And one chain on the Osmosis chain, they have now what's called Superfluid staking, where you LP and then you also get to stake one of those tokens. So you get the LP rewards and you get the staking rewards, and that's specifically with the Atom Osmo pair for those that are familiar with Cosmos. But yeah, those kind of instruments are going to be coming more and more across multiple chains. And yeah, I think to answer one of your earlier questions, I do think I would want Charlie to learn about, say, the top 20 chains and why people react so negatively at times to Cardano, like why Ripple did what they did with the SEC. Like what's up with the Cosmos Hub, what's up with the Cosmos ecosystem, like why did Avalanche build what they build and why that's different. How specifically Terra with their stable coin. That's the richer Web3 is actually kind of understanding all these sort of notable L1s and why they did what they did, and then why the sidechains or rollups had to be developed specifically for Ethereum, but some other ecosystems are being developed that way. I think from an education standpoint, I mean, it might be fun just to do a session or something to just bring in some experts or whatever. We could just talk shop about it at some point. But you got to start somewhere. You're definitely starting in probably the smartest place right now. And so yeah, okay, great. So that's number 3, long-term holdings.
Periodic savings.
Periodic
so
savings.
We can talk.
What's 2?
Diversification.
Okay. So
diversification.
How are you? Talk about that.
And this is where it gets complicated. How many coins you have on the platform? We'll have a pretty limited base to start off with. I mean, I am a big believer that you should give people the tools to go make their own decisions. And a huge part of the decision making actually was there are platforms out there that only want to offer Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And I think being prudent and maybe like the top 25 coins by volume feels like a pretty safe bet to have access to for a teenager. Something around there might be where we hover. But basically what happens is once you put $25 in your account, whatever it is, you can then apply it across multiple coins. And the more coins that you apply it to, every time you invest in a coin for the first time, you have to watch a video, an explainer video on that coin on the platform.
Mm.
And so it's almost like, and again, all these things are tied in together, right? So
Yeah, I
we're
love it.
hitting
I love
back
it.
on learning
Love it.
while also using diversification and teaching why diversification matters, right? And how it ties into your risk profile. And so some of that stuff, early on, we'll only be able to offer 10 coins. And that's like, depending on the size of your portfolio, it's not going to be heavily diversified. But we think that it's enough to be dangerous.
Oh yeah, over time. I mean, you're just teaching the basic concepts, right? I mean,
Totally.
I could see my son just sort of working through the gamification to try to get all 10 on your platform, right? Even just that,
Yeah.
right? If you have mana and you have ETH, and maybe DAI, like are you planning to do any of the stable coins on there?
So we'll have USDC on
USDC. Cool.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to just trade into that. So is number one trade then, if I remember the five? Is it trading?
Long-term holding.
Oh, number one is long term holdings.
Yeah, so long-term holding. Yeah, I mean, we don't order them. Like they're all equal value on the platform. But long-term holding, this goes back to GameStop, right? This is just the idea that 100 years of stock market history teaches you that unless you have a really sophisticated knowledge of the market, that you should be a long-term holder, and that passive investing for the average consumer is the best strategy. And so we reward that long-term holding. Every time that you literally don't sell an investment, we give you an award. And so if you hold for a month, we give you some money. We'll also do some things like dollar cost averaging and some other strategies,
Cool.
but those will get elevated once you get out of this kind of foundational area.
Cool. Wow. Okay. So then all five are going to be mixed together, interchange, and it's clear that the value proposition is it's a combination of learning and saving and trading and holding and just being introduced to these concepts.
Yeah.
And I think on your site it says something about like a side hustle or something. Is that what you mean by like engaging in it and kind of building the side? But talk to me about the side hustle language for teens.
Yeah, I mean, a side hustle is very posh, right? With teenagers, everybody kind of wants a side hustle of their own. Maybe they want to be a social media influencer. Maybe they, want to be a brand ambassador for a Nike or for a
Mm.
corporation that they like. I mean, there's a lot of side hustles out there, and I will say, teens shock the heck out of me these
Mm.
days because I think about myself when I was a teenager, and I was not nearly as conscientious as some of these teens that we talk to and actually do some like TikTok stuff with us
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and elsewhere. But the side hustle language comes from, hey, you don't have to be a social media influencer. You don't have to do all these things. You can literally just go learn about crypto and make free crypto
Yeah,
from us for
yeah,
being on our platform.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the side hustle. I mean, building wealth and getting compound interest is in some ways the easiest way to collect checks. And the earlier you start, I mean, Warren Buffett is the one who said, um, the earlier you either have to live really long to get a big portfolio or start really early. And starting early is easier, right?
True that. True that. Okay. So then just stepping back, like what is it about Web3 is a very broad term. Um, but what is it about Web3 that's so compelling to you personally?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a big theme of maybe like my life, and maybe anybody who's like a founder in general, this is I
Mm,
think the kind of the founder zeitgeist a little bit,
mm,
is you are just curious about technology and new things, and Web3 is of course the big new thing, and it's the thing that I'm constantly tinkering with, that I'm always curious. I'm like, however I feel about NFTs, for instance, I own an NFT because I wanted to know how NFTs worked,
mm, mm-hmm.
and so I think that thought process of just diving in and learning by doing is a huge part of this Web3 culture, and I think you see it across Web3. all the different kinds of technologies. It's full of people that just want to figure out how some of this stuff is working, try it. 3D artists were born overnight, I feel like, with the metaverse. And so there's so much ingenuity in this world that excites me. And I think that's so exciting to teenagers, of course, because it's native to what they do, how they use their phones, how they use technology. So that's exciting. So being the enabler of that is, I'm not going to say it was always easy. Getting the legal and compliance, check boxes to be able to go do tea in crypto is not an easy trail to blaze, but but now that we're here, I'm so excited because it's just such a natural fit, right?
So actually, a lot of the people that listen to this show, and most people just listen. Although, again, if you're listening to this, we also have video, so you can go to wclittle.com and I'll link to it. But for those listening in, a lot of them are entrepreneurs. A lot of them found me on Reddit, and they're in that demographic. They're in that younger demographic, just trying to work a side hustle, trying to be an entrepreneur. They're sitting in our entrepreneur on Reddit, and they're trying to think about, like, what are different tactics and tools and principles are more important, to kind of be successful. So would you have any like final words for the young entrepreneurs that are kind of in your demographic? It sounds like you have a huge heart for them, but do you have any sort of final words for those that are listening in that range?
Yeah, well, I think being an entrepreneur, and like living the entrepreneurial spirit, probably need maybe like 2 or 3 foundational things. Number one is being a great listener, because the more that you can listen to peers, the more that you can listen to people that have done things before you, have come before you, the more that you can listen to potential customers, the better you will be and more effective you will be. And so I think listening is a super key trait in whatever you're trying to innovate on, and whatever you're trying to create. So I think that's number one. Number two, I would say, is really just having the courage and resilience to get past the hard times. I will say myself, over the last 13 months of building Stack, there have been some really tough downswings. And when you build something from scratch, whether it's a social media account, whether it's a small business, whether it's a venture scale business, whatever it is, it takes a lot of resilience to get through some of those downtimes, to get to a few upswings. And you don't see the upswings for a while, right? But I think the more that you get through them, you build a lot of character in yourself, that becomes kind of intoxicating. I always say, the ocean of failure becomes intoxicating, because you stop, getting as affected by the downswings, because you know that it's more about the journey and about building something really cool, and those are table stakes. I think it's Ben Horowitz in his book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which is one of my favorite books. He talks about like the struggle. He has like the chapter that's just the struggle, and it's like the struggle is when you're at dinner and you can't even listen to the person across the table from you because you're thinking about the business.
Yeah.
The struggle, it's like all these things. And he's like, at the end, the struggle is something that every single entrepreneur has gone through. The struggle doesn't define success, but it is part of success. Everybody who's successful has done it. And I think just knowing that is powerful in itself. But go do it, rip off the warm-ups, get out there, try things, try new technologies. And I think these kids are inspiring to me every single day that I talk with them about.
Love it. All right. So you got a waiting list right now. So the call to action here is if you're listening to this, go to, what's your website?
Trystack.io, TRYSTACK.io.
Trystack.io. Get on the waiting list. When's the app come out? When are people going to get on this thing?
App comes out next month.
Oh, sweet.
And so if you're on the wait list, you'll actually get 3 months of the platform for free, and you'll get first access to the app.
Wow. And then you're going to start with iOS?
Start with iOS, yep.
Is Android coming at some point?
Android's coming at some point. 90% of our audience has iPhones from our research. So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, 90%. Apple taking
it dominated, right? Yeah. It's good to be Apple.
Sweet. All right. Well, anything else on your mind? I think we covered a lot, and I really, as a parent, both for my kids and as an investor investing in entrepreneurs that are building the next thing, of which a lot of them are on Web3, right? I care about them flourishing. I care about them doing good in the world. I care about them having access to opportunity and lots of different people having lots of so yeah, kudos to you actually for being considerate of that and getting that price point low enough so that you can reach a huge demographic. Any final thoughts overall in your mind here?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, the only other one is if there's any parents listening with teens. I know a big concern of parents is getting their teens, maybe whether it's college resumes or
Mm,
professional experience somehow. We have an ambassador program. I always say the hardest thing about getting your first internship is that you're supposed to have had an internship before. And I remember being a teenager and always having that anxiety.
yeah.
So our ambassador program is really built for that, where you get to dig in, you get to be a rep at your high school for Stack,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's super low stakes. Everything is 100% self-driven. If you want to just hold a meeting at your finance club at your high school, great. If you want to post on social media, great, but you don't have to do any of those things. And so it's very build it yourself. We want to just create a really thoughtful group of finance focused kids that are taking their finances into their own hands. And so that's also on our website. It's under join us. You click on ambassadors and sign up there.
Love it. Love it. Cool. All right. Well, hey, really appreciate your time. This has been great.
Thank you so much, Will. Thanks so much for having me. It's great.
Absolutely. All right, a couple quick things before you go. Number one, I have a general newsletter where I write about technology and startups and health science and teaching people to code. And I write about a variety of different subjects that we talk about on this show. So if you go to wclittle.com, there you'll be able to subscribe, and you'll also be able to subscribe to particular topics. If you're just interested in one or a few of them, you'll be notified right when I publish new content in those areas. Number two, my partners and I at Proto Ventures have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. If you go to startuprocket.com, there you'll be able to receive coaching guides and customize an operations framework for you and your team and your advisors to be on the same page in terms of what is the appropriate next step for you and your entrepreneurial journey. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review anywhere that you have listened to this podcast or watched this podcast, it would be super helpful to help those who might be interested in consuming this content as well. Thank you.